Welcome, everyone, to CDO's magazine series of one-on-one interviews with CDOs, data leaders, and key influencers. I'm your host, Robert Lutton, Vice President, Sandhill Consultants, and I'm coming to you today from snowy Toronto, Canada, working with the CDO magazine team. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing both Oladele and Daniel Zhang, co-founders from AfterData.ai. Anu, I understand that you've spent the past 5 years leading product development and driving strategies and roadmaps for platform data engineering and data governance, while also contributing to business growth through business development, fundraising, marketing, and human resources. And Daniel, for more than a decade, you've been a seasoned data product builder and have led the creation of Home Depot Canada's first data analytics team and consumer-facing analytics systems. Also, in the past, you were the first director of data intelligence at RP Investment Advisors. You also developed an AI trading system that helped the firm grow from over 6 billion to over 11 billion in assets under management. I'd like to welcome you both to this interview.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert, for having us. It's such a pleasure. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to connect with fellow data leaders and courtesy of the CDO magazine. We're happy to share a lot of our thoughts and engage with you. Thank you.
Yeah, the pleasure is always, Robert.
Daniel, pleasure. It's our pleasure to have you both. Now, as I understand it, you both have been on a mission to help CDOs and data leaders in a role to maximize ROI for data investments across the entire data landscape. And as such, there are a couple of key areas where we would like to ask you to provide some guidance. So for CDOs that are responsible for understanding and governing data across the enterprise, from soup to nuts, basically, in your experience, how do data leaders effectively map out their full data landscape? For example, are there any specific frameworks or key metrics that you rely upon to measure progress and maturity?
This is exactly what we do. We aim to do at AfterData. We want to arm CEOs and data leaders with such a structure. And in my opinion, I think such a structure would or should allow leaders to nurture the flow, which is the capture all the way through to consumption of data, allow them to anticipate bottlenecks, and also have the right resources at the right time to manage all of this data. They need to also be able to support the creation of a clear roadmap and flexibility needed to course correct when things don't go as planned. So this framework also ultimately needs to have a language that provides a common understanding that allows leaders to collaborate seamlessly, align their objectives, and communicate more effectively with each other and the rest of the leadership team. So what we've done is, in thinking through all of this, we're looking at 4 key metrics to anchor this framework. They are cost, they are volume, quality, and impact, which is ultimately the usage of data. The cost metric allows us to understand what data sets or products are most expensive to maintain, where is storage ballooning without corresponding value, is infrastructure optimized or is it over-provisioned, and so on. Quality metrics is less about avoiding mistakes truthfully. It's also about building a culture of trust. This is very, very key in managing data. When data is hard to trust, it's very hard to use. So our quality metrics help you detect issues early and help CDOs to respond to problems before they escalate into costly mistakes. Then there's usage. How does a company consume data? Understanding which applications, AI models, and BI tools are benefiting most from the data provided. And how do we provide insights into the data that fuels the company's most critical initiatives? Identifying all the underutilized data sets could help with redirecting resources to those that have a higher impact on the company's objectives, for example, and also helps to balance the cost of maintaining one's data estate with the business value that's delivered. So ultimately, with these, we aim to help CDOs avoid chaos within their data estates and turn them into well-organized, high-performing assets.
You certainly have a lot on your hands there with those key metrics. If I can continue, as data leaders and product owners, you have firsthand experience navigating the financial and operational challenges of managing enterprise data. In your discussions with other data leaders across industries, What do you hear are the most pressing pain points related to cost and efficiency of data management? And how do you see organizations balancing innovation with cost control?
Yeah, having met with many data leaders to discuss this at length, Robert, I've noticed several pressing pain points and symptoms. I think the most common relates to their day-to-day roles. CDOs and head of data are probably among the busiest executives I've encountered. Many data teams, they're substantially stretched in resources. And we know data and analytics typically runs nonstop, but now it seems like in many cases, so is their leader. Um, their data leaders barely have time for lunch, let alone striking a balance between execution and strategy. And this level of operational burden is not a common thing at the C-suite and executive level. What I've witnessed is behind the symptoms is that data leaders are struggling to secure the necessary investments to run their data functions properly. And running data and AI functions is costly when data leaders cannot demonstrate a strong cost management or prove that they can build data products efficiently, they won't be able to maintain the momentum and funding year after year. So there are also very specific pain points I've seen from data leaders that share their experience with me as well. For example, since the last 2 or 3 years, as we know, many data leaders are on the path of building a foundational unified data platform that supports multiple branches of the business. And they're struggling to amass support and sponsorship for their data platform, while certain business teams, they continue to run their data analytics and data science in isolation, hiring data scientists and engineers without collaborating with their head of data. And this pain point stems largely from the difficulty in demonstrating the cost efficiency and the advantages of their unified data platform. And there's more pain points like this, such as struggling to implement an effective data governance framework. We've heard many organizations at this point have a data governance framework, but few would be able to say their data governance framework is a very effective one. And other pain points like there's always a high cost of communication with other business executives. And many data leaders are also sharing that it's very difficult for them to navigate with unclear IT role boundaries as well. And then to the second part of your question, Robert, I believe achieving the balance lies into two things. First of all, you need to demonstrate that you can really build, as a data leader, you can really build data products efficiently. Then you need to focus on building data products that generate significant business value. So I really like how one particular CDO I've met before would phrase this question. And so allow me to steal his answer to this. So he's saying basically high cost by itself is not really a problem. The problem arises when the cost is high and there's no strong value attached with it. In other words, data leaders really need to come out with very strong value propositions to drive their data projects.
I think that quantifying the data, the value of data remains a challenge for many CDOs. Unlike CMOs who can track marketing through conversion tunnels, data executives don't have the standardized frameworks to measure their impact. Anu, from your perspective, why do you think it's so difficult for CDOs to be able to quantify the value of data? What are some of the fundamental obstacles preventing data leaders from clearly demonstrating ROI?
Yeah, great question, Robert, because I think that really builds a lot of what Daniel has just shared, right? I mean, when you go through the responses that were just provided, there's quite a few obstacles there. But I think when you boil it down, a lot of it generally then comes down to support and trust. And Daniel has a video on this actually that's really great that we should share the link for that. But it's great that you mentioned the example for a CMO. So when you think about a CMO and the marketing funnel, it keeps those leaders close to the journey of a potential customer, from the point where they are truly just a prospect all the way up to when they're a loyal advocate. And it's really more than just a visual metaphor, right? It's a living, breathing entity that needs to adapt to a shift in customers' behavior, the market trends, and also external factors. CDOs don't have such a framework. When I think about CSOs, like a chief sales officer as well, a framework for them would be keeping an eye on the sales pipeline stages, like prospects, opportunities, proposals, and closed deals, so they can understand truly all of the efforts of the sales teams. So when we look at these different leaders, what we find is that they're ultimately more dynamic with a common framework that uses the metrics that are produced out of those frameworks, and then they can use those to speak language that other leaders understand, things like customer acquisition costs, lifetime value, conversion rates, and so on and so forth. But beyond also speaking a common language, they use these metrics to fine-tune their approaches. And this is really what we want to do for data leaders. So we think that a similar framework should be in place for CDOs so that they can enable their business. And we think that CDOs, when they have key insights into the cost of maintaining their data estates, the volume of data being generated, the quality of the data, and the direct impact on application performance, AI models, business intelligence consumption, they're better served at actually managing and optimizing their data before it becomes an overwhelming liability. They could also quickly tell, truthfully, whether the data is benefiting the business in what the company has intended or not. So truthfully, I think they should be armed with a framework and being able to speak the language of impact, cost, and value with their peers, and ultimately then be able to demonstrate ROI.
Thanks, Anu. Daniel, when you look at these challenges and you try and take them into account, how do you see AfterData.ai helping CDOs bridge this gap? What kind of data-driven insights or frameworks could help CDOs better capture and communicate the return on opportunity?
Yeah, we are focusing on the framework part, Robert. And you've heard both me and Anu using the word demonstrate a lot. And we really believe that's the key. Because nowadays, data leaders, they need to manage both the reality and the perception of their data function. And most of them, they already realize they need to invest the effort to keep the reality and the perception in sync. So the metrics Anu mentioned earlier, cost, quality, volume, and impacts, those aren't really trade secrets. Most data leaders, they already measure and monitor those metrics themselves to some extent. What we help to do is we help them by accelerating the process of building out this monitoring engine and to building out this monitoring engine in a holistic way so all those four metrics can come together. So that way, data leaders, they don't have to invest excessive resources to capture the value their data teams generate. This addresses a common conundrum, in my view, which is when data leaders are struggling to gain support, to gain trust and resources, the solution in front of them would actually require significant resources. Because building out all of these things, using that CMO example you had before, we all know how much a customer data platform, how much effort, how much dollar that takes to build out, and all of the extensive effort and resources CMOs punch in to be able to track and understand and quantify their different initiatives and results. So by reducing the time and effort it needs for a CDO to implement those metric measurements and monitorings, we're helping them to ultimately break this conundrum and break this deadlock.
Very interesting. And Anu and Daniel, just before we end, I understand that you're looking to engage with more global CDOs and data leaders. So as a parting message, we would like to invite all CDOs and data leaders reviewing this interview to reach out to you both on LinkedIn or via your website, AfterData.ai. And with that, Anu and Daniel, we appreciate your time today And we hope to have you come back and share your knowledge and an update on data estate areas. I just have to say thank you, Anu and Daniel.
Thank you for having us, Robert. It'll be a pleasure, and it'll be great to engage with the CDO community. Love the opportunity to talk to more folks and continue to build out what we are for this community. Thank you for having us.
Yep, I'd like to echo that as well. Robert, thanks for having us. Really enjoyed this opportunity to share our thoughts. And as we have said before, both Anu and I, we've been data leaders ourselves, so we really personally understand the pain, and that's why we're on this mission to really drive a different result for them.
I'm certainly excited about this framework. And for our listeners, please visit cdo.tech for additional interviews. Thank you.
Thank you.